Looks like it's working. This is practice for my Toastmaster speech and a timing check. It's my version of how I spent my summer vacation. It'll have a different title in the speech, but let's just jump right in. I just got back from the most wonderful vacation I've ever had in my life. I didn't see any sights, I didn't go to any attractions. I spent the whole time in the courtyard of my sister's house, just talking to people. She lives in a small community that began coming together about 50 years ago. Like-minded people gathered there and built their homes. Being far away from city life gave them a sense of independence and freedom. Living under this umbrella of freedom brought them together, building bonds, sometimes lifelong bonds. Their sense of community grew until they became the village. Our own settlement was several miles down the road. Larger, more spread out, but not nearly as cohesive. At about the time my sister and I were ready to leave the nest, one of the villagers raided our settlement and took my sister. But she went happily. She loved him, and village life suited her. I ventured out to see the world, and she stayed there. As it turned out, the raider was the son of the de facto village chief. The father gained that distinction by affirmation, not proclamation. He and his wife simply exuded authority, and others just naturally followed. As such, my sister was at the center of all the village activity. She became a magnet for social gatherings. The large courtyard held an ever-changing parade of people at all hours, day and night. This is where I come in 50 years later. My relation to sister, plus my involvement all those years ago, allowed me to be accepted into this village. I met a fascinating array of characters. And what characters they were, they are, yet. Topics ranged far and wide. The stocky biker dude, perhaps indigenous, turned out to have some shamanistic knowledge. Bob the cook, an antique dealer, tells stories from time to time about when he was a private photographer for the rich and famous in Hollywood, or about one of his fantastic finds in his latest search for antiques. My nephew, the grizzly bear, born and raised in the village, an ambitious planner, he seems to have inherited his grandfather's imposing nature. But there is a streak of silver that is my sister's influence on values. His son, the budding artist, brought out sketches, and we critiqued his art again into the wee hours of the morning. I didn't mind. They were good. But he's still young and can grow much more. My sister, having been in the village from the beginning and having a love of history, has become the village historian. Much of what she knows is passed on through stories. But the stories come from her extensive research, our personal experience. I'm going to stop here for a minute because all right, on we go. Not every encounter was joyous. Even now, separated by time and space, my art still aches for the poor broken girl. She was a model, studying to become a therapist. Then something happened. She was too small and frail for the burden that life had caused her to carry. But she fights. She is a chihuahua barking at the Great Dane, telling him to stay the hell out of her yard. She fights against the whirlpool of emotions and thoughts, trying to pull her down. My heart went out to her as I remembered a troubled time of my own. I began to imagine the torment she's going through, to feel what she feels. And it shattered me. If I had been standing, I would have fallen to my knees. I couldn't stand. I couldn't take it. We talked until 4 a.m, and I let her help me. I prayed for her to find peace. And then there was the tall girl. We started talking. You're tall. You are too. From there, it was off to the races. She had an amazing depth and width of knowledge. We talked till the wee hours again. The topics were far-ranging, with ideas ricocheting back and forth. It was as if she was reading my mind, or maybe like I'm talking to myself. She would drop an obscure topic, and I would pick it up and run with it. Likewise, she did so. For someone who likes to talk, it was an exhilarating exchange. I might have pursued that further, but then I discovered that she was married. Game over. The white paving stones of the courtyard, lit by faraway lamps, glow with a pale light. Dark shadows pool under the trees. Chairs that can be moved, a bench that cannot. The occasional motorcycle or car might pull in. Two chairs pulled together in the shadows are perfect for intimate conversations. Cicadas and frogs were singing after a recent rain. The doors here are never locked, and people enter as they will. Every entry is greeted with smiles, hugs, and salutations. Sometimes the frigid air conditioning and activity inside would make the sultry outside air seem comfortable and conducive to quiet reflection. One such evening, I was enjoying the stillness of the courtyard. During the wee hours, when a wild bushman appeared out of the shadows, a lanky fellow with hair and beard forming a single structure around his head. He was carrying something, but I didn't look. In fact, I avoided eye contact when he walked by. It was only later that I discovered that he is the village philosopher, and I would like to see him if I make my way back again. Pause. I have to wet my whistle. All right, let's carry on from the Bushman. Well, now I have to return and look him up. But will the village be there when I make my way back? All the rural land has been bought and developed. Townhouses, churches, strip malls, stoplights, new roads and streets. City management has encroached right to the very edge of the village. The gravel road I grew up on is a 4-lane blacktop. From end to end, I could not recognize a single thing until I found the turnoff and drove around the corner into the past. Timing this is going to be tough. Anyway, thanks for listening.